We begin with new information on President Trump and the First Lady contracting coronavirus. Thanks for joining us. I'm Adam Cooperstein. It has been a morning full of breaking news. We're learning more about this diagnosis from the White House, their conditions, and also possibly how the president and the First Lady got it. And here's what we know right now. A White House official says the president is showing mild symptoms. He and the First Lady are in isolation at the White House. His close aide, Hope Hicks, also tested positive 1 day earlier. And we have live team coverage for you beginning in our newsroom with government affairs reporter Melissa Russo. Melissa.
Adam, the White House confirming that President Donald Trump is experiencing mild coronavirus symptoms at this time, and sources adding that the president had been feeling lethargic for a couple of days before that. Also, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows confirming within the past few minutes that the White House knew that his top aide, Hope Hicks, one of his top aides, had tested positive as they lifted off to attend a fundraiser in Bedminster, New Jersey yesterday. But even as this news sent shockwaves around the world, the White House insists it's just business as usual for the president.
President Trump said to be in good spirits today as he self-isolates at the White House, the news rippling across the world and through Washington.
Well, of course, as with everyone, we all receive that news with great sadness. I always pray for the president and his family that they're safe.
White House sources also telling NBC President Trump had been experiencing cold-like symptoms for a couple of days, falling asleep on the return flight from Minnesota Wednesday, which sources say is unlike him. The news began to unfold last night when President Trump confirmed his advisor, Hope Hicks, had tested positive after feeling unwell during that same trip. Hicks had tested negative before taking that trip with the president.
She tested positive. She's a hard worker, a lot of masks. She wears masks a lot, but she tested positive.
Overnight, Trump delivered his own diagnosis on Twitter. Tonight, the First Lady and I tested positive for COVID-19. We will begin our quarantine and recovery process immediately. We'll get through this together. Melania Trump with a tweet of her own, "We're feeling good, and I've postponed all upcoming engagements." Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie was one of the people in close proximity to the president during debate prep. He says they were tested daily before being close to Trump.
No one was wearing masks in the room when we were prepping the president during that period of time.
And we're told that Vice President Mike Pence and Second Lady Karen Pence have tested negative for COVID-19, as has Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett. As for Joe Biden, he and everyone who attended the debate on Tuesday, we're told, are being tested today. Biden is scheduled to appear at events in Grand Rapids, Michigan this afternoon, and we are not sure at this moment whether those events will take place as scheduled. Adam?
Yeah, a lot of moving parts right here. Melissa, thank you. You mentioned that trip for the president to New Jersey. He was at a fundraiser for his golf club in Bedminster just last night. News 4's Miles Miller is there. And Miles, I know Governor Murphy sent his well wishes this morning, and also he's concerned about the people who were in attendance and announced contact tracing underway.
That's right. As you said, Governor Phil Murphy announcing this morning that contact tracing has begun for people who were at that Bedminster fundraiser just yesterday. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, let's go ahead and give you the timeline here. President Trump held a fundraiser right here in Bedminster, New Jersey yesterday at his golf club, mingling and posing for photos with supporters at a fundraiser for his re-election campaign. Now, that event went forward after White House officials had already learned that one of his closest aides, Hope Hicks, had tested positive for COVID-19. He flew into town, into Morristown Airport, and took a helicopter here to Bedminster before leaving for Washington just before 5. Now, as I said, Governor Phil Murphy saying in this statement we'll put up on the screen now that says, quote, "The contact tracing process is underway. We urge everyone who attended yesterday's event in Bedminster to take full precautions, including self-quarantining and getting tested. Those who live here question why the president would come to town knowing that someone in his close inner circle had just tested positive for the virus."
And if you know that you possibly have been infected by somebody right next to you, you should stay home and not spread it, especially with the numbers going up the way they are. Right. Totally irresponsible.
What I'm hoping is I hope he gets healthy. Anybody that has it, I hope gets healthy. I mean, it's a terrible thing, this virus, and hopefully he recovers soon, and anybody else that has it also.
And sources tell NBC News that about 100 people attended that fundraiser, reading from some notes from that press conference with Chief of Staff Mike Meadows, saying that he learned of the virus. He learned that Hope Hicks had tested positive for the virus just moments before they lifted off to on Air Force One, and that people who were going to go on that trip, who had close contact with her, a number of them were pulled off that trip. As contact tracing is underway, there are a number of people in town here who are concerned that they may know people who were exposed by the president. We'll have more on that coming up later on News 4. That's the latest live here in Somerset County, Bedminster. I'm Miles Miller, News 4 New York.
Understandable. Okay, Miles, thank you. And News 4's Tracy Strahan live in our newsroom now with reaction from around the world. And Tracy, a lot of well wishes, but at least one reaction was pointed, to say the least.
There were some barbs there, Adam, to speak of. Now, the president and first lady joined the more than 34 million people worldwide who've tested positive for COVID-19. And once again, it demonstrates that the virus hasn't spared world leaders either.
Breaking news in the last hour. Donald Trump and his wife Melania have tested positive for coronavirus.
Donald Trump a annoncé ce matin avoir été testé positif au Covid-19.
Donald Trump إصابته بكوفيد-19.
The top story in the midst of a global pandemic, the deadly coronavirus infecting the highest level of American government. President Trump now joins a small but powerful group of world leaders who've contracted COVID-19, including Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro and British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who after initially working in isolation had to be transferred to an ICU. He recovered and thanked the National Health Service.
The NHS has saved my life, no question.
This morning, Johnson tweeted, quote, "My best wishes to President Trump and the First Lady. Hope they both have a speedy recovery from coronavirus." It's sympathy that wasn't extended in the official China Daily. The paper said, quote, "The positive test is yet another reminder that the coronavirus continues to spread, even as Trump has tried desperately to suggest it no longer poses a danger." Showing supporters a bottle of hydroxychloroquine he took after testing positive for COVID, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro recently called the virus a, quote, "little flu." He said closing the economy did more harm than the pandemic. President Trump's diagnosis drew reaction from the Kremlin, with Russian President Vladimir Putin sending him a telegram that read, quote, "I hope that your inherent vitality, good spirits, and optimism will help you cope with the dangerous virus."
Well, we also heard from the Director General of the World Health Organization, who sent well wishes to the President and First Lady, but also recalled how the Trump administration formally notified the UN back in July of plans to withdraw from that organization, with the President at that point saying they're, quote, "in need of reform." Adam?
Tracy, thank you. And joining us right now, Dr. Joseph Fair, an NBC News science contributor. He's also a virologist and epidemiologist. And Dr. Fair, thank you so much for your time this morning. I don't need to tell people in the tri-state about the severity of this virus that's taken more than 200,000 lives across America. But from your standpoint, this is the American president. What are the concerns moving forward, and what questions do you have about his health?
I mean, obviously, the president's not, I would say, in ideal health when you look at him, despite what his physicians have said previously. I think he does carry some extra weight, and there are some recent issues about his health we've heard about, but of course, you can't correlate that. That being said, if he's healthy, he may get through this fine, and he may experience mild or moderate symptoms. If he does, however, get very sick, then we go through the whole chain of command process. If he's incapacitated, that means that Vice President Pence will step up, and then there will be a whole change of government right as we're into an election season and to the election itself. And so, he has this for 6 weeks. I mean, think about what that would be just for the election, just because people have been known to be positive for a number of weeks after they have been infected.
An important question for folks in New Jersey. As we learned, Hope Hicks, his top aide, tested positive just before the president learning about this, just before that trip to the Bedminster Golf Club. We saw calls from people there saying it was irresponsible. Is that fair to say that was an irresponsible decision to go on with the fundraiser?
Yes, I think any public health official would say that that was irresponsible. It was irresponsible not to be wearing a mask. I mean, there were clear photos of him not wearing a mask with the president. Obviously, if the president is telling you not to wear a mask and he's not wearing one himself, it's irresponsible on all sides. And I think anyone that, is putting themselves in a position, especially when it who's the leader of our nation, where, you know, either you're going to be irresponsible around that person or he's going to be irresponsible around you. That's really unacceptable for, you know, our way of life, and so that we don't have a bigger disaster on our hands, say that, you know, our president gets incapacitated with COVID-19.
Okay, Dr. Joseph Fair, we're out of time, but thank you so much for yours. We appreciate it.
Thank you.